Hi, this is Myra with Boutique Paint. We're working on another gift giving idea that's pretty quick and easy. And it is we're going to take this board and we're going to put a hook on it and we're going to embellish it. And I got this board and these hooks from Lowe's, but Home Depot has them too. So whatever is convenient, or if you have a local hardware store that you like, I'm sure they'll have something. I actually went in to just find a square that was like this, and I couldn't find those. I thought, well, I can go home and make it. And then I found these, and I thought those are kind of fun. So that's what I'm using. So I'm going to mark off halfway point across this, which is 1 1/4 inches, or excuse me, 3/4 inches. So basically I like to pre-drill the holes. That makes it a little easier. Even if you're using a drill motor, that doesn't look quite, I'm going to eyeball this instead. I think that looks like him. So I'm just going to dot the center of this. Move my finger out of the way so I can see. And right there. So ignore that. And it is over a little, isn't it? And I'm going to take my drill motor, and this is a little teeny tiny bit, but it just kind of helps to get you started. You don't have to do this part. I just find it's easier. It helps you get it kind of lined up better. And you could use a little bit bigger drill bit for this part. On the back, and I painted this. This did not come white. I did paint it. Not very good on the back, but I did paint it. So on the back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these and put it on the back at the top before I even get started on the rest of it. That way you don't have to worry about it doing it later. So I make sure that my center upward tooth is right there. Once again, I just drill, and this may not be straight because I'm not over the top of this. It looks pretty good. Maybe a smidge there. Did I put it right back? I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to just hold it, and I'm just going to hit the center of that. And these are more important to drill because the screws on these are so tiny, and sometimes they have nails for these. Either one's fine. Sometimes I drill them even if I'm putting the nail ones in them. But these have little screws, and you can see those are teeny, teeny, tiny. So I'm going to go ahead. And this is a #1 screw head. If you don't have one of these screwdrivers, these are absolutely have to. It doesn't have to be this brand, but it's got the different ends to it so that when you have big screws, little screws, you can use it. And then these can be used also, the ends of those. Especially us gals, we got a tool up. You wouldn't believe the amount of tools I have. I have almost everything. Not quite, but almost. Oop. If I could get my fingers working. And there's a gray hair in there. I wonder where that came from. Can't be me. So like I said, I can see that that's not straight, but not too bad. When you're over the top of it, you can see what needs to be done. So now we'll put this on. And I'd use a drill motor most of the time to do this, but I didn't want to have to take the time to take out the bit, and well, I may have to use a little muscle here. There we go. And I'm going to be starting out using IOD's Birdsong mold. The reason why I'm using this is because I know a lot of you have this mold. It's kind of one of the basics, classics, I guess. But the nice thing about this is if you're making this for a gift, you can personalize it for the person you're giving it to. You can, if they like bright colors, you can paint these bright. If they like, you know, if they're more shabby chic, you can do the white, you know, and whatever. This is the one that I started with the butterfly, but you can do whatever. So next I'm going to make one of these birds. I'm going to do this guy here because he'll fit on here. And so I'm going to put a little cornstarch, of course. And then a little bit of clay. I had to open up a new Birdsong. I was looking all over for mine and I thought, where'd it go? And then I remembered I had loaned it to a customer because she wanted, I think it was a year ago. She wanted to make something and she says, well, you make me, you know, with the resin, a couple of sets from the Birdsong. I thought, no, I'll just loan it to you. She's here in town. And then I just totally forgot about it. But that's okay. She's a really good customer, so. And I just totally forgot to contact her. So I have a new one open. Now I think also I want to make this little guy because I might put him on too, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to go ahead and make him up so I can play with it. And then I can make the decision once I'm going along here. Sometimes on the bigger molds, where this one's not really big, as you're working the clay into the mold, sometimes one end wants to kind of lift up. So just hold it down with your finger on the other side and pull. Oops. I pulled all the clay right out of it. Tap it in there good. All right, that looks pretty good. So then we'll pop these guys out. Oh, I didn't get that on the edge there. I see a lot of people asking when they use resin, do you put the cornstarch in your mold? No, you do not. Not at all. I don't know what it would do, but I don't think it would help. And the resin should just pop off with the silicone. Oops, I tweaked his little feather. There we go. Now, if you're going to do this a color secondary to this, what I suggest you do is with a paintbrush, very carefully go ahead and paint these little guys. This one, I'm going to go ahead and do white. So I'm going to go ahead and glue him down, I think. See, what I was thinking is doing that. Like that. Okay. So we're going to use a little bit of, I'm just using tacky glue. And we're going to have him go over the top of this. So you want to make sure you get him pretty glued up. I don't know if you noticed when I showed you the butterfly that there's a crack running down the center. And I will show you how to take care of that if that happens, if you get any cracking, because you're molding it over the metal. Kind of wish he was facing the other direction. I don't think there's a small bird that does that in this mold. Nope, it doesn't. So we'll just go ahead and use him. But you could use any mold for this. Anything you wanted. I was kind of playing with different ideas. And I came up with some kind of fun ideas that I'm not going to share now. I'll share it in another project. But sometimes you're working on one thing, trying to figure out what you're doing, and another technique or another something comes along, and so it's kind of nice to come up with new projects that way. All right, scoot that all aside and put my clay away. Always put your clay away so that it doesn't get all dried out. So next I'm going to paint this, and I am going to do this white, and a lot of times, so that you don't lose the detail of your birds or whatever, you can start with the foam brush and kind of just, you know, smooth through there, or you can use a smaller brush. And I'm using DIY's White Swan today. You can see how well that goes on with a smaller brush. It takes a little longer, but it gets into the crevices nicely. And it doesn't, because the clay is still wet, you don't want to be losing the detail by smushing down the clay. Once it dries, and you could wait until this dries to do this. Set that aside, and then we'll bring this guy in. And here's the cracks. Oops, I'm making messes. Here's the cracks. This one I'm a lot less worried about. This one I think I am going to do something about it. And I did just put my clay away. And I need to clean my hands off a little bit, so that makes it a little easier to work with the clay, because I've got clay on my hands and paint on my hands. So I'm going to get my clay out again. And I'm just going to take a small piece of it. I'm just going to turn it into a clay worm. Oops. And then I'm going to take the end of a paintbrush. My worm's worming away. And you're just going to set that in there. And I'm going to take the end of a paintbrush. I want something, this might be too big. You just want something that you can kind of help push the clay into there. And actually, I'm going to just put a smidge of glue in there, so it helps it stick, especially since I already painted it. And you could just fill this with glue and then do touch-up paint. That would work too. Either way. See, that just fills it right up. But if your gap's a little bigger, then this will work. And you can just take your fingernail or something to cut it and just kind of push it in there. And as far as the glue is, you know, you want it to dry before you add paint to it. Let me see if I've got something a little bit smaller. I don't really have. So I wanted kind of a burnt umber color, but I don't have it, and I don't really feel like mixing it, but I'm going to just kind of use this. This is Summer Crush, DIY Summer Crush. And I'm not going to worry about painting the sides because I did have, in this case, I had already painted it. But basically, I'm wanting to hit the high spots and not the back right there. But that's okay because I'm going to do a top coat of the Farm Fresh that I used. I was thinking it would be fun to have a little bit of this color come through. So I'm just using the side of my brush. So I'm just hitting the highlights. I can turn it so you can see it a little bit better. So I got this dried, well, mostly dried. I see a little spot, but I'm going to put a little bit of Big Top. This is a container that came crashing down and it split open. So I'm using it instead of selling it. If you ever have a hard time getting into these containers, a regular paint opener is good. You can just kind of get it underneath there. And basically you're just trying to loosen up paint or whatever the product is from the edges. So with DIY paint, until it completely cures or you put some sort of top coat onto it, it remains water soluble for, not water soluble, but it will reactivate with water. So when you're wiping something back with a little bit of water, it can take back maybe a little bit more than you necessarily want it to take back. If you're using a different type of paint to do this project, you could paint it, and while it's still wet, just go ahead and pull back like we're going to. I'm going to get this dry so we can move on. Okay, so we're all dry and ready to go. And like I was saying, if you're, customizing this for a present, you can do whatever color, do whatever, design you think they would like. You can customize it for them any old way. This looks like it might take 2 coats. I'm going to get in there and get the edge. And I'm using a smaller brush again just to get in the nooks and crannies. You just want to make sure you smooth out your edges a little bit. And when you get to here, you're going to have to be a smidge careful. I did get a little bit on the hook. Always take a baby wipe. After you're done and after it's dry, you can take a baby wipe or a Q-tip and get in there and clean it up. It's not much, so it doesn't need much. If you think you want to put a little dark wax on these and you want a little bit more texture to it, when you paint it, don't paint it in stripes, kind of paint every which direction, and that gives you a little bit more when you go to put the dark wax on. Gives you a little bit more character. It's hard to believe Christmas just seemed to rush in this year. I've had more than normal going on this time of year, which is usually a pretty busy time anyway. But I hope everybody's getting what they need done. So once I dried it, I wanted a little bit more color, so I took a wet paper towel and just kind of pulled it back a little bit more. But once again, we're just going to wax this up really quickly. And you can see that the paint is changing colors. And it will go back to mostly this color. It might be just a smidge darker with the paint on it, but then the dark wax will be on it and it'll darken it up too. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for the color to come back, depending on what color you're using. Like the grays and the blacks, it takes some time for the wax for whatever reason. But if you don't want that, then you can just use the big top. I'll get the sides later so that I can move on and show you this. And it's funny, it's not making as much of a dramatic difference, of course, because it's not on the white, but I am just gonna get some on the edges here. Might not have enough clear wax on this. It is soaking in fast. I think part of that is, you know, when you're using raw wood, the DIY paint just sucks it right in. So that's about it. If you have any questions about any of the products I used in this video, you can go to our website at www.boutiquepaint.com. I almost forgot a W. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day. Bye.